2022 is almost upon us, and that means new book releases, and you guys already know what that means. One of our favorite subjects at hand as book lovers, as avid readers, as book reviewers is always new book releases. Every single year there is a plethora of books coming out. It's honestly hard to keep up, from all sorts of different genres, from fantasy to contemporary to sci-fi to romance to middle grade to YA. There is just so much happening throughout the year that, again, it's very hard to keep up. However, I do have a few books on my radar that I want to talk about, so that I have eyed out. I've got my eyes on the prize. I know I want to read them, and I'm just really excited for them to come about. So that being said, today's discussion is going to be all about 2022 book releases. In particular, my most anticipated book releases of 2022. But definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys' most anticipated book releases for 2022 are, because I'm sure, again, since there's so much happening, I am forgetting a ton that I'm also excited about. Or maybe you guys have books on your radar that I don't even know about, so that'll be a really cool pool of books to choose from. I have a list of, I believe, 23 books, but when have I ever been good at counting? So don't even count on me on counting, because I'm not very good at that. So without further ado, let's get on to the however many books I have on this list, because again, who knows how to count? Not me. The first book I have on my radar for 2022 is Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. This is an adult fantasy, and in this one we have our magical setting called Crow Island, where magic has not really been in fair use ever since the war ended. We follow our main character, Annie Mason, who will be arriving to said island, fully believing that the sole intention is to cleanse her life and leave the past behind, and again, never really get embroiled in magic because it's not something that she's been particularly fond of. However, one neighbor will make it all the more difficult as she witnesses something that she never really thought was possible. Anytime somebody mentions magic, forbidden, some love interest that might make it all better or who might stir things up, and I am all in for that. So I feel like this will be a little recipe for success in my books. I am, of course, also really excited for House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second installment in the Crescent City series. Am I fond of the cover? No. Am I the only one? No, but it seems like I am half the time, because everybody's in love with this cover. I think the more that I look at it, the less bothered I am. I'm not gonna lie though, first time I saw it, I said I hate you with every fiber of my being, but I shall read you anyway, because I'm really excited to see what happens next. You guys know of my undying love for Crescent City. I absolutely loved the first book. It'll forever be called Crescent City in my head, but given the very mysterious ending of the first book, I am very eager to see how that'll play out in the rest of the series. Particularly in the second book, we know how Miss Maas tends to go about love interest, how she tends to go about plot. A lot of the time, first book in series tend to be a little bit irrelevant for the overarching plot of the series, and so I'm really interested to see if this will follow kind of her MO with previous series, or if this will go by its own and do its own thing. Very, very curious to see what happens in this one. I'm both intrigued and scared that this book will not live up to the expectation, but if there's anything Miss Maas is good at, is surprising all of us. Next is a book that I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, but it sounds super cool, and it's got a trope that I used to read a lot about in fanfiction. I believe if executed well is something that I will love, and that is Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. Now in this one we've got the trope of hunter and prey, a monster hunter, and a monster itself, which sounds super cool, and I really hope that it lives up to the expectation. We follow our main character Joan, and all she wanted was one perfect summer. In fact, she was sent to spend the summer with her late mother's eccentric family in London. But things don't always play out the way that we want to, and once she finds out a few family secrets, her life will be stirred up in a way that she never really knew or expected or anticipated, which is the same thing as expected, Mel. Who would I be if I didn't have an R.F. Kuang book in here that is coming out next year? And that is Babel, or The Necessity of Violence, an arcane history of the Oxford Translators Revolution. This is a mix of fantasy, dark academia, and historical fiction. More so, and the reason why this book is so appealing, and that I believe will be the most appealing to a lot of people out there, is that it will be dark academia through the lens of POC. If you guys know anything about dark academia and its origins, then you know that the genre itself, the origin of this sort of lifestyle and aesthetic, has been very much embedded in white culture. And so it's always been a point of contention and a point of conversation conversation of why are there not more POCs in this space, within this genre, within this aesthetic. And so I love that we're gonna get this perspective from R.F. Kuang, because if you guys know me, I love the Poppy War. It's also historical fiction slash fantasy. I just know this book will be 10 times better than that because she wrote the Poppy War when she was 19. And I will read this because this is one of the first things I believe seeing with the promo of Babel, and it is Babel, a thematic response to the secret history and a tonal response to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, grapples with student revolutions, colonial resistance, and the use of translation as a tool of empire. That just gives me chills, and again, if her previous works are anything to go by, I truly believe this will be one of the standout novels, at least for me, in 2022. I also have Gallant by V.E. Schwab, another author that I kind of have a rocky history with. All of her books have been very hit or miss for me. The two standouts for me have been so far Addie LaRue and Vicious. Everything else has kind of again been on the lower rated spectrum. However, this one has one element that has always been super fascinating to me, and I have to blame Sarah Dumas for it, and that is shadow magic, or the power to manipulate shadows, or however shadows manifest themselves into a magic system is always something that has been intriguing to me, and I will fully again blame her for this. Our main character, Olivia Pryor, has grown up in this school for girls, and the only thing she has left of her past and a semblance of family is her mother's journal, which slowly but surely truly just unravels into madness. And so one day she gets the invitation to go back home to Gallant, where a lot of magic resides, and she will have one very big struggle, which is, do I take my role as a Pryor and protect the world from the master of the house, or do I take my place beside him? And I truly do hope, against every belief, against every low rating that I've given a Schwab book before, this one will take the cake, that this one will be good, that every trope will deliver. I just think it's such an interesting premise. It sounds so ominous and full of magic, and honestly very dark in its premise and at the core of the magic system. So I truly do hope that something amazing is delivered here, because I am hoping for some redeeming books next year for certain authors, and this is definitely one of them. Next up is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin, and honestly, the first thing I read of this book I think was the very top of it, so the pitch, and I got so excited. I think the first time I saw this book was on Twitter. When I tell you guys, I added this to my want to read shelf on Goodreads so freaking quickly. I was like, I need to include this in the video. I used to look at my hands with pride. Now, all I can think is, these are the hands that buried my mother. Somebody hugged me! That is just a great start to a synopsis. Following that, we see the name of our main character, which is Ning. And Ning has had to live with a long time with the knowledge that she has unfortunately killed in some way her mother. And she is looking for redemption, particularly in the art of tea making, the magical art of tea making. And she soon enough learns of this competition that the kingdom is holding to find the masters of said art, and that may be the only salvation for her. I think this has the potential to be hard-hitting, to really introduce an amazing magic system. The cover for this is also chef's kiss, and again, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this one, and I just need it to be in everybody's radars, because it's again that tagline, that little thing at the top that really got me, and now I'm looking, I'm staring, and I want it. I have another book that has been pitched as a dark academia of sorts. I don't know, given the synopsis that I'm seeing now, how accurate that dark academia thing is within this plot line. However, I did see that when the book first came to be known, and that is A Book of Night by Holly Black. I have never read a Holly Black book in my life. I have in the past attempted to read The Cruel Prince, however, that hasn't really boded well for me. Also, I can't really look past the fact that Cardan has a tail. This though, this sounds so freaking cool, and I want it in my hands as soon as freaking possible. Much like Gallant, we have a plot that follows this magic system that revolves around shadows. Shadows that can be altered for cosmetic and personal purposes. Shadows that can also be manipulated to grant people more power and influence. And the concept of that is very, very interesting. Shadows in this world, by the looks of the synopsis, also tend to have a life of their own, which I think only adds another level of complexity to this magic system. And our main character, Charlie, will soon enough get involved in this maelstrom of possibilities and disadvantages and struggles and hurdles with doppelgangers and billionaires and people evil enough that are chasing after these shadows to have power of their own and learn how to control them. I don't know what to expect with this one, but again, given the premise, given the shadow thing, Charlie is also a con artist. I think it has so many things going for it. So I just hope that the execution's nice, that the writing is nice, but I am very excited nonetheless. I also have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley on my list, and this sounds like a very claustrophobic thriller mystery moment, and that part makes me super excited to kind of delve deep into the story and see exactly what comes about it. We follow a set of siblings, Jess and Ben, and Jess arrives to Ben's apartment because she doesn't really have anywhere else to stay, and when she gets to Ben's apartment, she doesn't really find her brother there. She expects him to come back, except that as the minutes tick on, stranger things start happening. Very unwilling neighbors start appearing. They're not really willing participants of this game of questioning that Jess has brought onto them, and so the more time that goes by, the more she suspects everybody around her. Again, it seems very claustrophobic. There is a mystery to be solved. It adds to that feeling of tension. So this is definitely one of those thrillers that I'm really excited about for next year. One of the prettiest covers, hands down, that I've seen for 2022 is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. I am so excited for this book, and the only thing I know is the very just top part. Again, it's the pitch. It's the little tagline of it. It is inspired in Chinese mythology. It is very much indebted particularly in Shangye, who is the moon goddess, and obviously given the title, it'll be very much revolving around that. And we follow our main character in her quest to free her mother, except that she will be pit against one of those very ancient beings that will most likely stand in her way. And I may be completely wrong, but could you imagine that she falls in love with this, you know, super powerful immortal, the most powerful immortal of the realm? Could you imagine that? I feel like not only is it what usually goes down in YA, and in this instance I would very much like that to happen, but also I'm so intrigued because there's very few books that I have read with Chinese mythos, and so I just need to see how this will play out. It honestly sounds like a beautiful journey. It sounds like an emotional journey, but also something that allows for such an incredible magic system. But I cannot wait to see what the author has in store for this one. If the cover represents what's on the inside, this book is about to be fantastic, you guys. Another book that I don't know a lot about, if I'm being honest, however, I think after reading Legendborn and not necessarily adoring it in the way that I thought I would adore it, I have been keeping my eye out for something particularly in the YA section that will give me those Arthurian vibes and really deliver into what I'm looking for. Because honestly, I could seek out within the adult section what fits inside this category, inside this trope, inside this retelling that I'm looking for, but I just keep thinking about Avalon High from Disney, and again, I think that's what keeps bringing me to the YA section with this particular retelling, and maybe this one will do it. And this is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. So it is a young adult, and it's obviously fantasy, and it is a subversive take on Arthurian legend, where what would happen if, and this is one of my favorite pitches ever, when you grab something and then you put the what if in front of it. It's giving me all the riches of the world. What if after the chosen one has earned the throne and kept the kingdom, he has to stay married in order to keep it and to stay alive? Doesn't that sound incredible? It sounds super cool. The cover is also absolutely incredible. I've never heard of this author before. I have seen another book by them, but I haven't read it yet, so I really don't know what I'm getting myself into with this one when I do get around to reading it. But between the cover and the synopsis, it just sounds incredible. Exactly what I'm looking for, and I'm really excited to see what's up with it next year. Another one that I'm excited about that has no release date yet, I believe, and that also has no cover, or maybe it has a release date and no cover, I'm not really sure, but that is Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. You guys know me, I love these violent delights, I love our violent ends, and so Foul Lady Fortune I am hoping will be no different from them. This is a companion series to these violent delights where we're going to follow supposedly one of our favorite characters as they become a spy and go into the United States to serve some sort of purpose. And I am absolutely thrilled that we're gonna get more of these characters, more of this world, maybe a comeback of more characters even though we follow this particular one. But again, we don't have a lot of info yet, so we don't really know who the book will be following. I have my bet on 2 characters. We'll see what happens when this comes about, and I also have a feeling that this cover is going to be out of this world. The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas is another book on my list, and this is one that, even though I didn't have the best experience with Lost in the Neverwoods, I am truly hoping that this will be a redemption story. This one, though, is said to be a Percy Jackson meets the Hunger Games. It is a pitch that I've never seen done before, and it's something that makes absolute total sense when you look at the greater spectrum of of Greek mythology, so I'm really excited to see how this one will play out. We follow a narrative where every few years the sun's storage, its power, needs to be replenished, and in order to do that, society has found a very particular way where they found demigods to compete in the Sunbearer trials, where the winner will be tasked to travel to different temples in order to again give energy to the sun and replenish it, and the loser's body will be sacrificed to the sun in order to keep it shining. And this is all done in order to keep the evil obsidian gods at bay. Sounds super cool. Again, I am hoping that this will redeem Lost in the Neverwoods. I'm hoping that this one will do it for me. Another one I'm really excited about is The Red Palace by June Her. This is a historical fiction slash thriller horror. I have heard really great things about The Silence of Bones, which I have not personally read yet. It is set in 1758 Japan, and we follow our main character who has earned her place as a nurse at the Red Palace. But soon enough, she is thrust into this very dark and mythic world of court politics, and a very dangerous world when 4 women are killed in a single night, and the one person who is fit for this murder is her mentor and best friend. And now she will embark in this journey to try and find out exactly what has happened here and if her best friend and mentor are truly guilty. What I really like about this and what I think makes this so appealing that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be calling me as much if it was done in contemporary times is the historical fiction aspect of it. So I really do hope that there's a lot of history embroiled in this, a lot of moments true to the era, and to just have a lot of great commentary, because I really do think, given the synopsis and given the genres that it's currently shelved in Goodreads, I really do believe it has the potential to do all of that and more. Other books that I'm excited about for next year are obviously every single Ali Hazelwood book that is coming out next year. We've got a bunch of novellas. We've also got a proper novel. Again, we don't really have a lot of synopses on these. Some of them have covers, some of them do not, but I am really excited to see everything that she has to offer next year, because after The Love Hypothesis, I want to consume it all. I will most likely be reading every single thing she puts out next year. Another thriller is on my list, and that is the newest entry to Riley Sager's backlist, and that is The House Across the Lake. I love the fact that our main character is a former actress who is running away from bad press. I think that is a trope that truly works so well for this particular narrative. And so we follow her as she retreats into her lake house, and she meets her neighbors, a couple that is seemingly perfect on the outside but not necessarily on the inside. And when the wife goes missing, she will insert herself into this problem, try and find out exactly what has happened. The only thing is that these two people are also very high profile, just like her, and it might not be the best decision. Not gonna lie, it kind of reminds me of Gone Girl a little bit in its premise. If you know, you know. Somebody has said my name, and that is definitely Miss Shannon Maguire in the most literal of senses. Seasonal Fears. It is the sequel to Middle Game. You guys know Middle Game is one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and I am just so excited for the sequel. The main character has also been anointed the best name in the entirety of the world, which is Melanie, and I am very just I'm so excited for this. We follow our main characters, Melanie and Harry, which honestly, Mr. Harry Styles, where are you to compliment? Where are you to be the Harry to my Melanie? I'm here and I'm waiting. However, let me not get sidetracked. I do not know if they are siblings or not, in the same way that Roger and Dodger were siblings in the first one. That part is unclear. However, these two characters have their own sets of struggles, their own missing pieces, their missing halves, and they find it with each other, it seems, given the synopsis. However, their only salvation is to walk the improbable road, and there is a lot of violence chasing them, and a lot of violence that may not let them lead the lives that they want. And the very bottom of the synopsis, Miss Shannon Maguire strikes again. It seems like destiny has a plan for us after all. I am ready. I am here. I am willing and able. I just need this book on my freaking hands as soon as freaking possible. Another queen strikes again, and her name is Kat Cho with Once Upon a K-Prom. You have no idea. I absolutely loved her latest 2 entries, Wicked Fox and Vicious Spirits, and this one better deliver the same way, because the premise of this is, what if your childhood best friend came back into your life and he is now a K-pop star, and he is now asking you to go to prom with him, when going to prom is the very last thing you'd want to do. I cannot wait to read this. I cannot wait to love this. I cannot wait to scream about it. Am I hyping myself up too much for this one? Probably. 338 pages? Why is that shorter than Wicked Fox? Another thriller slash horror is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This is said to be more on the comedic, satirical side of it, while still retaining all of those horror elements. We don't really have have a lot to go on here, but New York Times bestselling author Grady Hendrix takes on the haunted house in a hilarious and terrifying new novel that explores the way your past and your family can haunt you like nothing else. Very vague, very straight to the point, so I guess that's all we know. I am still very excited to consume this and see what's up. Another book that looks super cute and super good is Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is one that, again, I've only read the tagline, the pitch for this, and it is all really that you need to know, because with romances, the less you know, probably the better. I find myself having the best experiences when I know absolutely nothing about romance books, so I'll keep myself to this very brief, just succinct moment. All I know is that we follow a TV meteorologist and a sports reporter as they try and bring their two divorced bosses together with very unforecasted results. Again, with romances, the less I know, typically the better. I have never read anything by the author before. I am interested in the X talk, and I probably will get around to that before this one comes out, but this one sounds super good, super cute, and I am always, hello Truck, how sexy for you to show up. However, I am really excited to see how this plays out, and I'm always here for a good romance, so I'm hoping that it'll be good. The next one on my list is Disorientation by Elaine Chow. Now this one, the synopsis is incredibly long, and I will admit that I have not read the majority of it, but it was the very bottom of this that really struck a chord with me, and it really just caught my eye. An uproarious and big-hearted satire, alive with sharp edges, immense warmth, and a cast of unforgettable characters, Disorientation is both a blistering send-up of white supremacy in academia and a profound reckoning of a Taiwanese American woman's complicity and unspoken rage. In this electrifying debut novel from a provocative new voice, Chow asks who gets to tell our stories and how the story changes when we finally tell it ourselves. I thought it was super cool. I know it has something to do with a dissertation and poetry and a translation, and that's literally all I know. It's super vague details, but it was that very bottom part. And honestly, this is where I go. Synopses don't need to be that long for it to grip people. If I were to only see this as the excerpt of the book, it would be more than enough. It would be more than fine. The It Girl by Ruth Ware is also on my radar for 2022, and we follow our main character April, and she is all the glitz, glams, and glamours because she is considered the it girl at her school at the time, and she pulls this girl named Hannah into her orbit alongside a few other friends, except that as their friendship evolves, one day April turns up dead. The person that is assumed to commit said murder is put into prison, except that when the person dies, he is not believed to be as guilty as they had initially thought, and now a journalist is coming back up with evidence that the person is still very much out there and free. The cover is honestly super simple but super gorgeous. I can't wait to read more Ruth Ware next year, because the only one that I've read is One by One. It ended up being a little bit meh for me, but I have hope that other ones of her works will really hit home for me. Who would I be if I didn't have Amari and the Great Game on this list? It is the sequel to Amari and the Night Brothers, which you guys know I already love and adore, and it only felt fitting to obviously include this on the list. I am super bummed though that the release date has been pushed back several times. However, I know it's all in good conscience. It's all in order to give us the prettiest cover, the best story, and the best bound up of the book. However, I am an impatient girl and I need it in my hands. I need to know what happens next. It is honestly one of the best middle grades that I've read in my life in general. It's just so good and so magical and so heartwarming, and I can't wait to see what happens next with Amari's journey, what she learns about herself and her abilities in this one. There's just so much room for growth and more world building that I am just very intrigued and very excited for this one. And last but not least, I have A Deadly Affair by Agatha Christie. It is a collection of short stories, and it is set to explore the darker sides of love and how love can twist individuals into doing very deep, dark, and twisted things. It sounds super interesting. I've also never read any Agatha Christie before. I have been prompted to do so, so maybe 2022 will be the year where I do it. Who knows? We'll see. However, the fact that this is coming out next year is super exciting, and I cannot wait to see that exploration and see some characters that I've heard of before. I think it'll be a really nice subversion to things that I kind of am aware of. And those are all the books that I have for you guys today. Those are my most anticipated releases for 2022. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to smash that like button down below. Also, let a girl know, what are your most anticipated releases for 2022? Do any of yours overlap with mine? Are there any that I didn't particularly mention in this video that you are excited about. Let me know all of it down below, because honestly, 2022 is the year where honestly, I didn't even set it in my reading goals video, but I really want to try and read my most anticipated releases. I sucked at it this year. Some I read, the majority I believe I did not. Fingers crossed it'll happen. If you reach the end of the video, let's leave the little plant pots that kind of looks like this. Let's leave the little plant pot emoji if you reach the very end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe down below if you haven't done so already. I am constantly uploading videos that I'm sure you do not want to miss. And if you want to support the channel further, I do have a Patreon. We call ourselves the Citadel. They were also a massive help to this video, and I need to thank them all for leaving their comments as to what their most anticipated releases were, because I honestly stole a few from those lists. So thank you to them also for being such willing participants always in all of my videos. If you want to join us, the link for that is always down below, as well as all of my social medias. And yes, I love you guys so much, and I shall see you on the next one. Bye guys.